Ron Ames, producer and founder for the Modern Film Consortium. Excellent. Alex Jenyon, virtual art department supervisor, DNEG 360/Dimension Studios. Excellent. Round of applause. Thank you. Katrina King, global strategy leader for content production at AWS. Big round of applause for Katrina. And Walter Schulz, VFX director, Cuebric. Excellent. So without further ado, I hand it over to this illustrious group to talk about the making of Cowgirls on the Moon.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. So just kind of introduce the project. Every year we've been building studios in the cloud at AWS, and we've discovered that if we create a piece of content, it contextualizes the series of demos into a story. And so instead of seeing a bunch of demos in a booth, what you're seeing is the contextualized interaction between all of the various workloads that create a holistic workflow in the cloud. And so this year we really wanted to challenge ourselves by creating a high concept piece of content that would really challenge us to do more with less and to really lean into modern technologies in order to be able to create something. And over the process of this show, well, it started off as a joke. I said, let's do something ridiculously out there that's really going to force us to lead into modern cloud computing and generative AI. And I said something ridiculous like Cowgirls on the Moon. And it was a joke, but nobody came up with a better idea. So that's what you're stuck with today. So what we ended up doing, we wanted to do something really high concept. And there's three kind of main themes to the production that we made. The first is generative AI assisted virtual production. The second is AWS Deadline Cloud powered VFX and rendering. And then the third one is holistic production in the cloud. And so when we set off to make this, I somehow managed to rope Ron Ames, producer of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, to come in on this. And he brought DNEG in, and before you know it, we had industry legends collaborating to try to take like ultra-modern bleeding-edge technologies, put them together into a coherent workflow, and see if we can do something absolutely insanely ambitious with absolutely no resources. We ended up delivering 36 VFX shots with 8 people in 8 days. And everything was shot virtual production. We've got a combination of Compson and Nuke, a bunch of Houdini work that we did. And we actually managed to pull this project off against all odds. We also have our director of animation, Getty Wensinger, in the room. So a round of applause for Getty. So without further ado, let's play Cowgirls on the Moon and then have a little discussion about how we made it. It's ridiculous, I warn you.
In a world where space cowgirls rule the lunar frontier, one group of fearless women blaze a cosmic trail in the moon dust like no other. Armed with laser lassos, bionic unicorns, and a passion for bedazzling the unknown, they patrol the ranges of Mare Tranquility, the moon, in search of adventure and cosmic justice. And just maybe a little more zero-gravity hairspray.
Ride the cosmic waves of style with zero-gravity hairspray.
But when a bothersome bunch of lunar looters threatens to topple the tranquility of the final frontier, Sheriff Starburst must gather her galactic gals for the moon ride of their lives.
You're just another shooting star about to fizzle out, Deputy Dazzler.
Fizzle out? Honey, I'm like a comet. Once I cross you, you'll be starstruck for ages.
From the creators of The Little Green Sheriff and Galactic Gidea comes an epic tale of courage, grit, and a whole lot of cosmic cowgirl sass. Strap on your space spurs, yoke up your unicorns, and prepare for the ultimate lunar showdown. Because when the cowgirls on the moon are in town, the universe had better watch out. Cowgirls on the Moon. Yeehaw to the stars and beyond.
So we chose to do a movie trailer because the theme of for AWS this year is Newsroom in the Cloud. So we chose to do a trailer so that it could play in the commercial breaks of our live news broadcast every morning. So let's start with you, Ron. you produced Lord of the Rings of Power, obviously a little cable access show. So what made you interested in this project? And can you tell us a little bit about what the Modern Film Consortium does?
Absolutely. So I am extremely proud of being one of the executive producers on this production. And when Katrina called us, Jesse and I were sitting there, and we got a phone call, and Katrina said, well, we have a production that we're about to shoot. In fact, we're shooting right now. We need to put this together. We're going to be collaborating using the newest tools that we have in Studio in the cloud, and we have no money. And would you like to put this together for us? Jesse and I looked at each other and said, we're in. Cowgirls on the moon, that's what got me. I knew this was going to be good. As Katrina's productions all are, they are zany, but underlyingly, there's real, this is a real use case of truly the tools of the future and the tools of the present. This is really how collaborative filmmaking can be done. The guys will talk a little bit about actually how we did it. But the first thing that Jesse and I did was we thought, well, who could help us? We started first by thinking perhaps a small in-house team could do this. And then we thought, let's bring in, we work as in-house filmmakers for DNEG. We thought, let's bring in the DNEG team that is responsible for virtual production in London and see if they'd be interested in. They were already moving to cloud-based production, and they said it would be great to play with the tools. So they were in, and that sealed the deal, and here we are.
And we had a lot of fun doing it, too. So, AJ, it was such an honor to work with you in DNEG. You came into the project fast and furious. So we were originally, when we realized we needed a lot more help, Ron reached out to DNEG, Dimension Studios. And so you came in fast and furious, like the day in between production and post. So can you tell us a little bit about the experience of getting up and running?
It's normally super intimidating. When I'm supervising a show, onboarding a crew is normally terrifying. You have to put in a whole bunch of tickets. It goes in a JIRA queue. It doesn't get looked at for 3 days. Maybe you get some credentials the next week. This one we got up and running in less than 24 hours. And we go straight to, got an email. It had a password. We downloaded a nice DCV. We had some computers in the cloud, and they had everything installed. So I got a crew up and running straight away. They were kind of shocked. They had some workstations with Unreal Perforces on there. Perforce is working. Houdini has licenses, and Nuke connects to the cloud. And we started working. That was awesome.
Yeah, I think you came in on a Friday and then started working on a Monday.
Yes.
So we were able to set up the Cloud Studio environment in about 24 hours, including a render farm as well. And we'll dive into that in a little bit. So Walter, we would not have been able to make this production without Cuebric. All of the backgrounds that you see in every single shot, both in the virtual production and in the in-engine animation, were generated using Cuebric. So can you tell us, Walter, a little bit about Cuebric and what you do and how it was used on the production?
Yeah, Cuebric is generative AI, but mostly emphasizing into how we can apply this into the Hollywood production. Other generative AIs have tools, free tools out there without any guidance, any tutorials, and how do you use this? It looks great on that image, but how do you make that into a believable environment that you can navigate through somehow or create some kind of a scene that makes sense? So in Cuebric, we specialize that. I have the best job possible because I'm having to invent ways of applying these flat images, segmenting them with the tools for Cuebric, and then integrating that into a believable environment that you can trace or create your own scene. One thing I wanted to mention, though, people that are not in the visual effects industry, they just heard DNEG. DNEG is Double Negative, is one of the top 5 studios in the world that does this. And obviously, we are very proud to be working with them. And also the fact that our environments work perfectly well. We had one meeting, and then we were off running. It's been great.
And it was such a pleasure to work with you. We'll do a little deeper dive into Cuebric's technology and how we used it in a moment. But Ron, let's kind of take a step back. So you and the Modern Film Consortium work to enable filmmakers to be able to migrate to the cloud and using the most modern tools in the world. So tell us a little bit about how you work to empower filmmakers to embrace new technologies.
The challenge of adoption is really one of the greatest challenges we have.
You're not suggesting the industry is reluctant for change, are you?
No, not at all. Petrified, I think, would be the word, not reluctant. The notion that we've done it before this way, or we have investment in a certain infrastructure, it really is one of the impediments to moving forward. And on Rings of Power, the great good fortune we had was we had a team that and producers who and Amazon and AWS supporting us to not say, well, we'll do what we've done before. We're going to try new stuff. If it doesn't work, we're not going to give up. We're going to make it work and make it work in a way that actually has benefits. So once we saw the efficiencies, the creative possibilities, and truly the collaborative power of breaking down siloed walls of the traditional ways we've been working, we realized that this had a great value. So we decided that that was going to be our mission, and that's what we were going to do. And people are really interested. We're at an inflection point where the business is changing so rapidly. How do we do things? How do we do things efficiently? And how do we actually take these tools and make art? That's our interest. So our little art piece here, when you called us, and we called our division at DNEG that we knew would be interested in this, we said, guys, you want to do this? And it didn't take them 2 minutes to say, oh yeah, no problem. We'll call AJ, we'll get a team. And what AJ is describing is absolutely true. Out of the box, we were able to turn these machines on. And in fact, there was a change. We first said, oh, we want these machines to be Linux. But then we changed our minds and said, no, we want them to be Windows. Literally minutes, we had new machines up and running. The ability to work quickly, to collaborate, to tear down walls. We had groups working in Vancouver. We had groups working in London, working with you in LA and all over. And Cuebric,
Boston, Idaho, Switzerland, Turkey, Tucson, Netherlands. Everybody collaborates.
It's seamless. It is seamless and it's exciting. And truly, this is leaning into this is what we're all about, and we really believe in it. And it works. The great news is that it works.
It works. So AJ, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the collaborative environment. We had people like Ron just mentioned all over the world collaborating in this environment. We were pretty much working 24 hours a day. We created 36 VFX shots in 8 days with 8 people, I think.
Not full time. It was probably 4.5 people total spread across 8 working days.
Yeah. 36 shots. So tell us a little bit about how the collaborative cloud-based environment made this possible.
So I don't think I ever want to go back to not using cloud workstations. In Vancouver, we have a small team that works very commonly with London, and they're described, I think, in a good way as the overnight elves. So what always used to happen is London would get to the end of their day, they wouldn't have finished because it's VFX. Of course you haven't finished. And then they would slam a ton of overtime. Well, now they don't have to because I have a call with them at the end of their day, right at the beginning of my day on the West Coast, and we just take over the work wherever they put it down. And because these were cloud workstations and the ping to London was 160-ish milliseconds through nice DCV, that's workable. A couple of times I didn't even transfer the work over to the West Coast. I just took over the workstation in London and carried on working for the remainder of our day. So yeah, we just got to roll straight on with the crew. We could have rolled on to another team in APAC and done actual 24 hours, but we kind of cut it at maybe 18. But no, it's very efficient, and I do not want to go back.
I just want to say we talked to the producers this morning, and it was in London, and they said that it was like a submarine. One group would finish work, say their day is done, and the next group would pick up on the same machines, on the same boxes, and the availability of having all of the assets in a single place with no upload, download, none of that required, made it just totally seamless. It really was amazing.
It aligns with the Movie Labs. I mean, we're basically now talking about Movie Labs principle. So the production itself aligns with 5 principles of the Movie Labs 2030 vision. In late 2022, we did another production that was showcased by the Movie Labs Showcase program for 5 principles of the Movie Labs 2030 vision, 1, 2, 3, 6, and 10. 1 being assets are ingested straight to the cloud, 2 being applications come to the content, 3, propagation of assets is a publish function, 6 is universal authentication, and 10 being a real-time feedback. And so we were able to showcase these 5 principles again using this production. So it's very much in alignment with those principles, what you were just saying. The other thing that was interesting that we did is we used generative AI almost throughout this entire project. At AWS, we believe very strongly in the responsible use of generative AI. So we used applications that allowed the artists to work more efficiently and to offload the mundane technical aspects. So we used, like for instance, we used Runway for a bunch of concept art. We created some storyboards and we used some very, very lightweight graphic design, like the spray can that you see. Some of those graphics were created using Runway. We ended up using, we used Filmlight during the color correction process, used 3 different Gen AI tools, 1 for rotoscoping, 1 for facial recognition, so that you can do a grade on skin tones in the face of an actor, and then it recognizes that actor throughout the production and then can automatically apply that grade to the other shots within the production. They did automated rotoscoping, and they have an ML tool for doing retiming of shots, and we needed to use that a little bit throughout the process. One of the interesting applications of Gen AI we use, our microphone died on set. So the shot of Deputy Dazzler when she says, "Honey, I'm like a comet," that was actually shot using the Red Camera onboard microphone, and you can probably imagine how that sounds. So we used Adobe Premiere's enhanced speech tool, and it completely rebuilt the dialogue track as if it was recorded on an ADR session, using completely Gen AI. And the amount of time that saved us of having not to go into an ADR session was incredible. But then, I mean, the real application of Gen AI in this was our use of Cuebric. So, Walter, let's dive a little bit into kind of like what Cuebric generates, how it imports into Unreal, and how your technology works.
Yeah, basically, there are different models that you can utilize from science fiction to classic and also the standard. But right off the bat, what I've always noticed, even before I came into Cuebric, is I was trying all the other Midjourney, DALL-E tools out there, and you always have this fantastic look that doesn't really look realistic. With Cuebric, you type 4 words and you get something that looks like a photo. Very, very believable. So then from there, you start segmenting, and Cuebric is able to detect what objects are in different distances. So you're allowed to segment those foreground, midground, and background, and anything in between that you feel like it's going to be useful into layers. You bring that into Unreal Engine, and you have to be a little bit creative on, depending on what type of environment, you can use a curve stage, or you can use some kind of a flat plane, depending on what you have there. One of the recent tools integrations that we've had are the depth maps, where depth maps create that displacement that you need in order to make a slope, an actual slope in 3D space. And beyond that, we also have it utilizing in this case, but in virtual production. In this case, we entirely created the environment with a few iterations, and there were some things that they loved the environment, but there were a couple of things that we wanted to change. With our in-painting tools, we were able to remove all those objects that we didn't want in that particular environment without touching anything else. So you do have that consistency by being able to work locally in any part of the image.
And what's really exciting is, so once Cuebric exports it, we have these different layers, and then they're presented in Unreal, so that as we move the camera and the camera tracking on the volume, we get parallax, and you can see it very much appears photorealistically. We're showing it in the AWS booth, so I invite you all to come by and see it after this. AJ, so as we were talking about, we used a whole bunch of kind of new tools. On April 2nd, we released AWS Deadline Cloud, which is our new render as a service product. Do you want to talk a little bit about how the experience of working with Deadline Cloud was?
So just like the software was installed for us, both Nuke and Houdini had the plugin already there. So there was a node or a ROP, depending which one you're in, that talked to the cloud. I mean, it was awesome. It just removed all the barriers to going to get licenses, partition it out, guess how many machines you were going to need, make sure that you have the licenses lined up, which you never do, and then get shouted at for going over budget by your producer. We just cranked up. I think we did 12. We didn't need more than that, but we did 12 in the cloud. They were just ready to go. And we ran Deadline Cloud from both Nuke and Houdini. So, yeah, love it.
So Deadline Cloud, for those of you who don't know, it's our new renders as service product. It has, we spun up our render farm in a matter of minutes. And we had DNEG up and running, the full studio in the cloud and the render farm as well. It's got some interesting features. It's got open APIs, so you can integrate it into your own applications. For spitting up a new render farm, you can do it in a matter of minutes. But we also released open job description, which allows us to create a translation layer to be able to integrate existing infrastructure into Deadline Cloud. So if you already have a render farm using open job description, you can burst into the cloud very, very easily and get up and running with Deadline Cloud.
They're a very responsive team. We did run into a couple of just pre-production bugs. They fixed it for us kind of live in production, which was kind of impressive. And I guess you're welcome. The thing's battle tested. We've used it and they're now fixed.
So, Ron, let's come back to you for a minute. You're a filmmaker who really leads into modern technologies. So for filmmakers who are looking to kind of embrace the variety of new technologies that we see here at the show, what advice do you give, and what closing thoughts do you have for the community?
So I think really we are in the most, I've been involved in filmmaking for a long time, and I can say that we are at the most exciting time I've ever experienced in actually being able to tell stories, any kind of story, in the most magnificent ways. And I think the challenge is the wise use of this technology. How can it help us to break down silos, to collaborate, to make better art? And I think really what this is proving, and while this is a small effort, but done in a really interesting and collaborative way, very efficiently, and it does tell a story, and it's fun, and it's funny, and it's really important, because underlyingly it is how work should be done. What is being described, and we talked to the artists who worked on this, there was zero pain in the ass. There was zero challenges. They could use their own widgets and the things that they like to use in their machines, and absolutely transparently be able to work in the cloud. And really the idea of having this material available is open, and using AI in both intelligent, wholesome, and ethical ways is really making it possible for us to expand our vision, work more efficiently, and more collaboratively, and make better art. And I think that truly are the values that Jesse and I are interested in. Love being, I have to mention my partner, Jesse.
Yeah, let's do a call out to Jesse Kobayashi, who is another executive producer, helped us with the project.
Yeah, so this is the real deal. And this is not some promotional thing. We really use these tools, and they work.
So one of the interesting things is, like I said, the entire production of Cowgirls on the Moon is in the AWS booth. You can take a tour of the editorial workstations, the VFX workstations. The render farm is in there. We've got our cloud studio management. All of the tools that we use are in the booth, and they're actually hosting the real projects that the artist used. So if you want to see a cloud studio in action, you can come and actually put your hands on the keyboard and actually experience these.
You didn't tell me people would dig around in my Nuke scripts. That's somewhat embarrassing.
One thing I do want to say in closing is that the studio in the cloud that we built, AWS and Slalom are working to automate the deployment of a studio in the cloud. Michael Voss here is from Slalom. And so what we're doing is we're working to automate the deployment of a studio in the cloud. And not only that, we're creating a framework to be able to integrate not only AWS services, but also partner offerings, so that as customers are making this migration to the cloud, they're able to easily choose automated integration points, selecting from AWS services and partner offerings. And it really allows us to achieve process, operational, and ultimately cost efficiencies in building a studio in the cloud. So if you're a customer that's interested in Studio in the Cloud, come visit us and see what we've got going on in the AWS booth. And if you're a partner interested in potentially integrating with this new initiative, I welcome you to come and talk to us, and we can set up a time to talk about that. So I think we're right about at time here. So thank you all for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Ames, Alex Jenyon, and Walter Schulz. Awesome. And we're right about on time. Thanks all for joining us.